Oh, hello. I'm Thespian Bard, and welcome to Thespian Bard Reviews. As most of you know, one of the great holiday traditions in America is to go down to your local dance company's production of the Nutcracker Ballet. But have you ever wondered, what is the story, and what is it like? Well, today I review for you E.T. Hoffman's The Nutcracker and the Mouse King. The book begins, as much as the ballet does, with the Stahlbaum children, Marie and Fritz, waiting for their godfather Drosselmeyer to arrive with presents at a Christmas party. Now, admittedly, it's only going to be the three of them, their older sister, and their parents, with godfather Drosselmeyer, unlike in the ballet. Of course, they get very fantastic gifts, including a little doll named Clara. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the popular name for Marie in American ballet, Clara, comes from a doll she receives. Any case, there are some very fantabulous gifts, a very fine figure of a palace, and then eventually we are introduced to the Nutcracker himself. As usual, Fritz breaks the Nutcracker, who of course is wearing very soldierly regalia, and little Marie is so distraught by this that she takes care of the Nutcracker and gets him all fixed up to the best of her ability. That night, the Mouse King, who has 7 heads, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, 7 heads. Of course, comes and attacks. The Nutcracker does triumph, but is still injured, and Marie is shown to be very protective of her Nutcracker. So, after a couple battles between the Nutcracker and the Mouse King, which are generally, Father Drosselmeyer is convinced to tell the story of the Nutcracker's origins. This is the tale of the hard nut, and is usually not seen in the ballet. It goes somewhat like this. There was a princess named Pirlipat, who was born to a king, and was protected by 7 nursemaids, each holding tomcats that they had to stroke to keep awake, to protect her from a mouse queen who had had all her children killed by mouse traps that had been ordered set by the king after the mouse queen tricked the king's wife into getting a tub of lard, giving her the mouse queen all the lard. Yeah, it's complicated. So the Mouse Queen eventually sneaks in, and she casts a spell on the Princess Pirlipat, basically turning her into a female Nutcracker. Big jaws that are perfect, and she can crack nuts, and she likes to eat nuts, and she talks, and her mouth moves like this, because that's how Nutcracker's mouth moves. Any case, she then goes and then he orders the court magician type person, Drosselmeyer. Yes, it's the same Drosselmeyer who's the godfather of Marie and Fritz, to go find a cure. And Drosselmeyer discovers that you have to find this nut. So he goes and finds this nut, which is called the Nutcracker. And a toy maker, Drosselmeyer, reveals that, oh, I happen to have the nut. Oh, and apparently there's this boy who has to have never shaved, and that turns out to be his nephew, Drosselmeyer's nephew. So Drosselmeyer, his nephew, and the nut all go to the princess, and Drosselmeyer's nephew takes the nut. He takes 7 steps forward, cracks it, offers it to the princess. She takes it, and then he does this deep bow and does 7 steps backward, and on the 7th step he crushes the queen, who dies, but not before switching the spell, so that now the Nutcracker prince, as I'll call him now, is talking like that and has been made ugly. So Pellipat rejects the now ugly Nutcracker because she's a vain and shallow woman, young lady, and he's left in this form. Marie is touched by this, and that's the basic Hard Nut story. So eventually, Marie takes a sword and gives it to the Nutcracker, and the Nutcracker is able to defeat the Mouse King at last. He then finally takes her to the land of sweets. There's a lot of dancing, and she eventually falls asleep. She wakes up and is told that it was all a dream, and not to speak of it again because it's just silly. She then delivers this great line about how, unlike Princess Pirlipat, she would always love the Nutcracker, blah-de-blah-de-blah. And bang, the Nutcracker is turned back to human form in the form of Drosselmeyer's nephew, as predicted. And they all live happily ever after. She eventually marries the Nutcracker after a relationship of how many years? Let's see, she's 7 in the story for the entire body of the story by E.T. Hoffman. So if you think about it, they were childhood sweethearts, and Drosselmeyer's nephew must be like 10 years old at most. Yes, it's a very interesting story, but it is a beautiful story, and E.T. Hoffman is a genius. Clara is 7 in this, which it makes her one of the younger Claras. Usually Clara is portrayed as being 12 or 15, 16, 17, an adult in some versions, but maybe a little young adult, but still. She's generally been portrayed as older in a lot of adaptations. There's a few where she's portrayed in the actual age, but those aren't as common. Same with Drosselmeyer's nephew, he's usually aged up. So yes. Anything else? Yeah. The Sugar Plum Fairy doesn't exist in the story. That is something added from the ballet. And yes, I have to admit, as an adaptationalist, even I give Marie the name of her doll, Clara. But usually I name her mother Marie, so in any case, that has been this discussion of the Nutcracker and the Mouse King. I hope you enjoyed, and this has been Thespian Bard, wishing you a very Merry Christmas.